Welcome to the SegaGuys podcast, an experience that doesn't cost £699 or dollars to enjoy, and it even comes with its own drive. And that would be me, your host, Dan the Mega Driver, and it is my great pleasure to introduce once again my co-host, the Kent Ryu, James the Segaholic, back in the hot seat once more. James, how you doing, mate?
Mate, standing ovation for that intro, by the way. That is fantastic. I don't know how long you've been sitting on that, mate. That was sensational. But yes, back in my wee comfy seat. Got the props round me, microphones on. It's been a while. I think mid-June was the last time I recorded. We're doing this on September 11th, so I planned to take 6 weeks off. It's been pretty much like double that, so it's great to get back in and talk some Sega, and joined by a couple of special guests on this return as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a couple of great chaps right here. We have a couple of Sega nuts, fellow content creators. So, welcome Dibs and welcome Ben. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. How are you both doing?
Oh, very good, mate. Very good.
Yeah, real good.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, real pleasure.
Both fans, so we'll be asking you for autographs at the end. No, it's great to be on, and obviously we've just having a little chat before we got going, and I sense we are going to get some passionate Sega chat on the go. Probably won't be able to stop us, and I'll have to go and get the girlfriend to send me to bed at about 1 a.m. So.
Yeah, but if the warm-up's anything to go by, this could be Return of the King sort of duration at this rate. But we'll try and keep it manageable. But what have you both been up to? I mean, Ben, you've bought half the Sega Saturns in the country of Japan, haven't you?
I went over. About 2 years ago. I bought some. What were they? Breath of the Wild. No, so Animal Crossing Joy-Con for the Switch, and just for about a month they were on sale in the UK. The daughter got them in a bundle, and every time I saw her playing the Switch, I was that jealous. I went and tracked them down. Only places Japan, and I spent about £1 million bringing these Joy-Con in. And then about a month ago, I was like, "Oh, do you know what? I really, really want one of those twin sticks for playing Virtual On." And so I started going down a rabbit hole. It was like the summer holidays. I was just sitting around like at my mum's place. Before you knew it, I was bidding. I was back on the site. And I said to Dibs, like, "Oh, listen, if I'm going to buy something, I might as well get you something as well, combine the postage." Snowballed. It just completely went off the rails. I said to you before, there's a bunch of other stuff I had in the basket that didn't get through, so it could have been even worse. But yeah, that box, it's like with, 1.5 meters cubed, and it sat in the kitchen for about 6 weeks because it arrived just before we went off on holidays. I got back from visiting family, and the girlfriend's face, she was just looking at me going, "That box is going this weekend." So yeah, finally opened it. So it's been an exciting week opening that. Also, a couple of games. New 3DS arrive. It's been an absolute spend up. So no time to play any of it. I'll just fully sit there and I'll just look at it. But it's exciting anyway.
That's brilliant. Yeah, those auction sites, the proxy sites for like Yahoo auctions and stuff. Yeah, they're deadly. James, you'll remember when I was getting a few from there, and it's just like, yeah, by the time you like factor in the costs and everything and the shipping, it's just like, well, I'm buying this copy of like Fighting Vipers 2, which is, it's £4 over there. It's so cheap, but it's going to cost me about £60 to bring it over. So I might as well dump a load of other crap in the basket.
I'm just laughing because that's almost word for word what I was saying. It is.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm going to get it.
Yeah, I was just grateful to be able to get in there too, because you grabbed me a few bits. That was much appreciated.
James, you were the same. You were the same. Oh, why are you on your auction sites? Do you want to get me?
I don't think you clapped eyes on this, Dibs, have you? This one's headed his way.
That's the one, is it?
Yeah. It's in good nick.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've always wanted the grey one.
Yeah,
that's how I got the twin sticks as well, because it was Tom Thumb. He was getting one of his hauls, and he just by chance sent me a DM, and it was a picture of the twin sticks box with like the copy of Virtual On, and I went, "Oh mate, how much did you get that for?" And he was like, £22. And I replied back, "Fuck off," right? and I went, "Is there any more on there?" And he went, you want me to look? He said, do you want boxed or unboxed? I went, I'm not fussy. Oh, whatever you can get me, mate. And he came back an hour later, or less than an hour later, with a picture of the one that he'd found. Just picked this one up for you, 25 quid.
Nice.
And all they charged me was the cost of it and the price for him to ship it from him to me. So all in, I got the twin sticks boxed with virtual on in the box for 36 quid.
It's just brilliant, isn't it? Because things as
you,
well as,
you go on eBay, look how much they go for.
Yeah. Apart from the price, it is the fact that some of this kit, you do well to find it, to be honest. You know, so when I was on there, I was saying to you, Dibs, wasn't I? It's like the availability of stuff, like these grey Saturns. Obviously, you'll find them on UK eBay, but on there, it's just list. Obviously,
Yeah.
You know, it's sold well. They've got loads of them, and I was like, they just had a different experience of all this kit because it's just such vast quantities. I'll tell you one thing as well. I've maybe got like 20 Saturn games, Japanese Saturn games. Every single one is so mint. I don't know what it must just, as someone was saying on Twitter, it must be a cultural thing because they are so mint. It's like I got a Sega Rally. The disc is absolutely pristine. It's got every insert, like the little spine that's got the adverts on it, the receipt, the guarantee card and stuff, and every single thing. And it's just like, I don't know, it sounds stupid to say, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like moving, thinking someone over in Japan cared about this the same way we did. It's like, loved it.
But the thing is, a lot of that stuff is labelled junk. You see, like it's a junk sale. This is all junk. Discs are not. In, you read the translation, it's like not in great condition. No word of a lie. One of the times I got my packages, like I got all these discs, and it was all junk stuff because it's all just they're just getting rid of it. It's piles of Dreamcast and Saturn stuff, and I got more, and they're all pretty much immaculate.
Yeah.
And I think at the same time I ordered something from eBay and I got it and I opened up and the spindle was all cracked and the disc was scratched to bits. It's just like, it just shows the difference in kind of how people respect their stuff on both sides of the world.
That's what Saturn Dave said as well. Remember, Saturn Dave said that in Japan, like they get charged by like, is it the litre or something to get rid of their garbage? So so it's actually more cost effective for the Japanese to sell, even if they get like a quid for it.
Yeah,
it's more cost effective because if they have to junk that, literally junk
it, fascinating.
They have to actually pay extra to get rid of it. So it's more cost effective just to sell it on these auction sites. But
we'll just put it out there. All four of us, I think, will take your junk, Japan. Listen,
Japan, give us your junk.
The four of us might. Our partners might have something to say about it.
I think I just heard a groan from the other room.
Tell that Sega-holic to shut up!
It's that bloody guy again.
Is that Scottish guy for YouTube?
Eat that
guy. So, Dibs, did you get much out of that package as well? Then did you have your shopping list?
Yeah, I mean, like I already had quite a lot of stuff. Like, I mean, like I have to keep it tucked away in my loft a lot of the time. Like when I want to play some, I have to go and retrieve particular bits one at a time. But like I was saying, I always wanted the grey Saturn because like when the Saturn was first announced, that was the one we saw in all the magazines, and I was like, that would kind of got ingrained in me. It's like that's what the Saturn's going to be. And like when we got the black one, I mean, I do kind of like the black one; it looks really cool. But that part of me still wanted the grey one. So when that opportunity kind of came up, I was like, yeah, I'm going to get that. And also, I wanted the Knights analog pad from Japan, the white one, because I got the PAL one, the black one, but like I just I've got the Knights Saturn, like the white one, so I thought like I pair that up with the analog pad as well, so it would just look really cool together.
There's something about the Japanese livery that is just so nice. I've actually got, when I was in Japan earlier this year, I actually came across one of the it was the Nights into Dreams package with the analog pad, and I've got the analog pad anyway, but my PAL box that died decades ago, but I've actually got found it, and it wasn't like dirt cheap. It worked out about 25 quid, but it was still kind of great condition. It just looks absolutely gorgeous.
Cheaper than here, that's for sure.
I got to tell you a little thing, Dan. I think coincidentally, we were in Japan around the same time, but I went with my daughter, who was like 12 at the time, and she got really travel sick, really homesick, and we did most of our stuff, but a few things we didn't really do. arcades and shopping, like game shop. And I don't know if it was like on the way back, like sat in Doha airport, like going through the Twitter, and I was like, your tweet started popping. I was like, oh no, I've missed out all this stuff.
Oh, it's
next time.
Because I went over there because, long story short, my son had a girlfriend over there. He went to meet her, and obviously he was 16 and don't want him to travel over there on his own. It's the first time he's been all alone. He'd have travelled abroad anyway. Not travelled abroad anyway. It'd be first time we travelled abroad alone. It's a long way, so it's like we're gonna have to. Me or your mum have to go with you, and I'm gonna have to take one for the team. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to go with you. But obviously, I wanted to keep an eye on him. But clearly, two little 16-year-old lovebirds didn't want me stalking around in the background. So a lot of the time, I was just left to my own devices. So I was frequently, obviously I've got loads of touristy stuff on there. Like, I didn't just do the gaming stuff. I did loads and loads of the touristy stuff. But when I had the spare moment, it was right. I'll go to this secondhand shop. I'll go to this.
That is awesome. Literally, with no word of a lie, being an awesome dad and getting to hang around in Japan to play games were both worked. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was. Yeah, I hope you do get a try, because the arcades are brilliant, especially in Akihabara in Tokyo. It was absolutely amazing. So hopefully, if you get a chance to go back,
there'll be a return leg. I think it's such an amazing place because, like you say, you could doing the touristy stuff is amazing. Completely putting aside all our sort of various interests in Japan, it's an amazing place for that. There's like amazing games and shops and all of that, and then it's like amazing scenery and country. There's about 50 holidays you can have there, so I said definitely be going back.
Definitely recommended for anyone else that's thinking of going as well. But guys, obviously we've spoken for years now. I think I remember Dibs, us first talking way back when we was doing the podcast, and I remember I think, how long ago was your Street Fighter 2 video? That on
that
the old
Gregoric 7 or 8 years ago, maybe.
I remember
I don't
that.
even remember. Yeah,
That's,
it was wow.
But obviously both Sega fans. How did you both get into Sega? I think is where to start. Where did your Sega journey begin?
Should I go first? Or
sure. I guess just before I got into Sega, I got into video games as a whole, I suppose. And that kind of started when my parents took me around to one of their friends' house. It was this lady they knew, and her boyfriend was there, and he had like an Atari 2600 set up. And this was kind of like the mid 80s. And I'd never really seen video games before. And I was like, oh, what's this guy up to here? I was like, watching what he was doing. He was playing Pong, and he like chucks the controller into my hands, and we were like just playing it like for like an hour, and something just like kind of activated in my brain. Like it was just I came alive or something to video games, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like the most fun I've ever had. And it was like, and this was only over Pong. So many years later, like my parents took me to an arcade. It was on Brighton seafront, like on the pier, and like I remember there were 2 rooms like full of arcades, and it was the one furthest to the back. And I walked in there, and like going from Pong to then seeing Outrun was like the most unbelievable thing I'd ever experienced. And I was just like, my mind was blown. And like that's where I kind of first became aware of Sega, because it had like the logo emblazoned on the back and stuff. And I was just like watching every detail of it, and the music was just like embedding itself in my brain, and it was just like the most unreal thing I'd ever seen. Because it was so awesome, like because I'd grown up like watching like Smokey and the Bandit, Cannonball Run, these kind of games, and Smokey and the Bandit he's the cool dude with like the girl in the car next to him, and suddenly I could play that kind of thing on this arcade machine, except for in a Ferrari, and it was just like it was just mind blowing, really. And that's where kind of Sega first kind of became a thing to me that I kind of just really blew me away. So
Smoking the Bandit and Sega, pretty much our childhood.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So what was the first Sega console that you got then? Where did you go from there?
Well, I before I got a Sega console, my parents bought me a Commodore 64. And obviously the version of Outrun on that wasn't quite up to the arcade
It's still a
standard.
good version, though.
It was,
I reckon.
yeah. I mean, I had my fun with it and that, but I was I had a friend called Matt Fidel who had an NES. Like he must have got it when it first came out because I remember he had like Rob the Robot and the Gun when it was still grey, you know, before they changed it to the orange one. And I was just like, you know, we would play like so many games around his house because really it was his dad's, and his dad just threw tons of cash at it. He had so many games and stuff. But at some point, like I saw that advert. Do you remember the "Do me a favor, plug me into a Sega" with the kind of talking TV with the lines down it? And I suddenly became aware there was this other company making these games, and then I was like, Sega. I know that name. That's like Outrun and that kind of thing, you know. So basically, by the time I actually got to pick up a console, it was like a few years later and that, but Sonic had started you know, showing up on the scene, and that pretty much swayed me. And also I kind of thought like I've played like a ton of the NES games, so it's like I want to see what's going on over on the Sega side, as you guys say. Yeah, it's a Master System with Alex Kidd built in was my first Sega, so yeah.
Classic, yes, that was our introduction. My brother. Well, I was actually on the Commodore 64, and it was my brother that got the Master System 2 with Alex Kidd built in.
Yeah,
and yeah, it was just like it was. I was just like so envious of him having this Master System. Of course, I kind of ended up playing it the most anyway, more than he did. What about you, Bedrell?
Well, I mean that Pong to Outrun moment, a similar one. So I was an Amstrad CPC 464 guy to start with, and I had the tape, you know, I had the Outrun. So this is the one with no music on it, separate tape for the music.
Yeah,
didn't have a hi-fi, so just never heard the music at the time. So I had that. I had no real concept who Sega were. They were just another name in the box of tapes that, you know, my dad picked up from WH Smith or whatever nonsense place it was. And then we went in the arcade, same thing. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what Outrun looks like. And we grew up near Eastbourne Pier. I mean, Eastbourne is like, you know, it's an okay place now. It's got a bit of money. It's kind of gone up in the world. But back then it was proper blue rinse. You must know Eastbourne's reputation. It was grannies, like little cafes, just very sedate. But it had this awesome arcade on the pier. I mean, it's looking back, it was properly good quality. We took, what do you reckon, maybe 100, 150 machines? And like,
wow.
Yeah, it was well loaded. And they had big ones too, like real good ones.
And yeah, going in there with dad and like bit of Outrun, bit of Afterburner. I was thinking actually yesterday, I can still physically like remember sitting in the Afterburner arcade and feeling that like juddering when you crash to the floor. Unfortunately, quite often because it's bloody rock solid when you're about 8 years old. But that's the first Sega memory from CPC Outrun up to seeing it in the arcades. But I think the reason I actually went on to Sega, like, and thought they were cool, wasn't even that. I don't think they've stayed sort of an arcade thing for me. But me and my family, especially my uncle, we were massive fans of Viz. I mean, still massive fans of Viz comic, you know. And and I distinctly remember, I can put myself back in the scene, coming across that one of their Sega ads in there, and it was specifically that one. It's like, what's blue and pisses all over everything. It's on the edge. And I was like, I had no idea who they were, and that's their marketing campaign, like summed up. You know, it was all about catch your attention, and my God, it worked, and that stuck with me. And then yeah, just from there went into it. And there's always an uncle. I know that uncles feature quite prominently in your story, but it's like mine was an Uncle Kevin, and he had a Mega Drive with Desert Strike and Sonic. And I don't know what I had at the time, but when I saw that, I was like, yeah, it's a done deal. I've got to get me one of those. But I think, Dibs, we've got to chuck it. I've got to chuck in the story at this point because it's like so basically, this is almost my proudest moment as a gamer. I used to beg, borrow, and steal a lot of games from the kids at school. So I went to like a posh school, but my mum was a teacher. We had no money, so I was also on the scrounge from these kids with loads of kit. At some point, I borrowed this fella's Master System, and when I gave it back, inadvertently, I must say, like, he left all the manuals with me. So it's maybe like what, 10, 15 manuals for these games, completely worthless to me. Like, I know on eBay you'd get a bit for now, but back then completely worthless. And we took it up this shop in town. It's still there actually. It's like a camera shop, just sells like old style cameras. and he must have been running a sideline selling games. And somehow we just got the idea to try and do him a deal, and we gave him these manuals, and he gave me a Mega Drive.
What?
Yeah, it was crazy.
That is how it happened, right? Was there any money that changed hands?
Not money. I remember you did have a copy of Mortal Kombat on the SNES. I think that was the only thing of value that you kind of traded in.
Well,
so.
that for me, that's negative value because it wasn't Street Fighter. It's no good. But...
yeah.
So it's the proudest moment, and obviously, you know, I've made some dodgy deals over my time, but that was a good one. So that was the formal where I got the Mega Drive. Still proud.
Brilliant. Yeah. You had the SNES before that though.
Well, this is where I've got to tell you, my memory was basically sort of half stored on Dibbs's brain. Because I was saying before, a number of times I'll be like I did earlier, it's like, oh yeah, you know, remember when you had Alpha 2? And he was like, no, you had Alpha 2. Like, it's like, remember when I got, yeah, anyway. So, yeah, I mean, first system was a Game Boy. Got it for my 10th birthday. And it is technically what brought us together because one of our shared mates, his mum was an Avon lady doing the rounds. He's like peeking out behind her, like through the door, and he sees me on the stairs playing the Game Boy. He didn't have anything, and he's obviously badgered his mum to come in and start playing. And that is literally how our friendship, me and Chris, started. And then Chris introduced me to Dibs. So it's all down to the Game Boy. I had that for a month, took it to school, screen got smashed, like no replacement. Dad felt sorry for me and bought me a Game Gear. So that's how, from there, that's where it went on. And then
decent replacement.
You've tried to kind of like man that story up by saying your friendship started because of a Game Boy.
Yeah,
mate, your friendship started because of Avon.
It's basically makeup. My interest in gaming all comes down to lipstick.
So this is what I love about conversations between men of our age. It's all 8-bit home micros, Sega, Avon ladies, Transformers t-shirts. I mean, it's it's everything.
That's the thing. Obviously, like filled in the blanks since, but yeah, Matt Pennell was the only fellow I knew with an S. I genuinely never knew anyone else out of all friends at school, friends in our hometown and stuff that had one. The rest of us were all on some form of home computer. And
yeah, he was ahead of the cat. I remember, I couldn't believe it. His dad even bought a second NES when Turtles came out. He got like the box set of Turtles because he'd said like, "Oh, I've invested so much money in all these games and stuff." I was like, "Oh man, I just want one." Still on the Commodore 64, loading with tape and stuff.
Oh, again, we had one guy at school. His name was Kenny McAlpine, and he had a NES. And I used to go to his, and it was Turtles. And I remember the Turtles game came out on the Spectrum. Now, if you remember the box for the Turtles game, it was this bright blue cover and it was like the cartoon on the front of it, and it just, the box was lovely. I loaded that up, and I was like, "What is this shit?" It was awful. It was like the Turtles, you could barely recognize them, like they were like sewer levels, but it wasn't as fast as the NES version,
No.
and like, it was so bad. I was like, I think he kind of felt he had one up on us at that point, but
it's quite a big one. That art on those home computer boxes was nuts, wasn't it? Do you follow? Who's that fellow who does the work on Twitter, where he takes the boxes, strips away the writing and stuff?
Oh, cleans it up.
Gary Arnott?
He probably does it. I think he's like a Spanish fellow. I want to say his name, but I'll probably say it wrong. But he does great work in it. And this last week, he's posted a couple of Amstrad covers. Well, actually, like various versions. And I'm like, Jesus, these are like properly, you know, real artist bits of work that must have taken weeks to actually create. And then here they are on a crappy little tape for a crappy game. So fair play to them. Put the effort in.
Yeah, they had to sell them, you know. The images on the back are from various formats.
Yes, very misleading.
Was on a
liars, like man. You go home and it's like, it's not until you see the tiny print, it goes, screenshots taken from Amiga 500 version. Like,
I mean, we should have.
Where's my colours? Where's all my colours went?
Yeah. Why are all these screenshots different colours? It's like.
Oh, and then you both presumably went from Mega Drive to Saturn, because you were saying, I think, was it before? Or, you know, we've been chatting for so long now, I can't remember. But at some point, you said you all, you know, the four of you, the four mates, all had Sega Saturns and all just shared the games between you, which sounds awesome.
Well, here's the thing. I think so. I think SNES is maybe the only one I had before you guys. Everything else I've ridden Dibs's coattails, either because you just sort of, got there first, had the cash saved up or whatever. But, I've had some amazing access to Sega consoles over the years, which it's all down to, oh no, actually I have to admit, I did have the 32X, but
you did have that. I was going to say, I had a Mega CD, you had the 32X, but then I remember my sister plugged a Super Nintendo cable into the back of my Mega CD, which basically blew it. And then I got this insurance money, and this was about a year before the Saturn came out, and I thought, hang on, if I save that money, I get some Christmas money, I get my birthday money, and basically I just hoarded money for like an entire year. It was painful when Christmas came around because, my sister was getting all this stuff, and I just had nothing to show for it. But I was just like, just focus on the Saturn. And then when July 8th, 95 came around, I was there day one, picking it up from I got it from Dixon's, and it had like Virtua Fighter in the box, didn't it? And they didn't have Daytona in stock, and I was like, oh man. So I had to walk down to, I think it was it Electronics Boutique at the time? I forget the name of the game shop because they changed it
around the corner.
But down the street a bit there was Electronics Boutique, and they had Daytona, so I grabbed them both like on day one. And you were with me, Badger, weren't you? And we had a very good day.
I can technically say I got Saturn day one on the launch, but I didn't get my own one until December 96.
Right. I feel so left out now because I didn't play a Sega Saturn on launch day, but obviously, James, you did, and you two both did.
Yeah. Come on, dude.
Sort it out.
And I can't do anything about it now.
I can remember that so physically. I can remember sitting in everyone goes on about reading the back of the box when you're on the drive home and stuff. I can remember sitting in the back of your mum's car in Eastbourne Arndale Centre car park, and it was almost pitch black, so there's no lights in it, trying to make out the back of that Saturn box. Beautiful times.
Oh yeah, it was a great time.
That's amazing. And you got your own in 96 then, Badge?
Yeah, got that 3-pack. So what would have been in that? Sega Rally, obviously, Virtua Fighter 2, something else. And I obviously got Christmas Nights, but I think it's like either followed on because did I have to send off for it? I don't know.
No, they gave it away in the shop.
Yeah.
You had to buy one of the big games.
There was a table outside, like Electronics Boutique, piled high with them. Please take one. Like,
I heard you guys talk about that, and I was like, that was very different to my experience because I was like waiting, like counting down the seconds for it to become available because I got Fighting Vipers. I had the money like kind of burning the hole in my pocket because I wanted to just go and get the game, but Christmas Nights wasn't available yet. And I remember I turned up on the day it was supposed to be available, and the manager of Electronics Boutique was like giving me a hard time, like, oh, they're not supposed to be out yet. And I just like, I've never stood up for myself in my entire life. But at that moment, I was like, I am not leaving until you give me Christmas Nights, and I will have it right now. And I somehow managed to convince him, and I left the shop with it. And had a darn good Christmas, I gotta say, partly because of that.
That is true. You're a very placid guy, but if it's one thing to bring out your inner Karen, it's someone denying you Sega. Oh, I know the third game, Daytona CCE. Nice enough, but it's not Daytona. So
CCE. I was going to say because I got mine in November '96, and mine came with Sega Rally Virtua Fighter 2, but mine came with the original Daytona.
Well, you've done well because mine definitely didn't. But I think so as you guys, we're massive fans of the Daytona, and like graphics. Who cares? But I can remember sitting there playing that for just hours on end. So CCE, it got played a bit, but nah, it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah. And you both get Dreamcast in you? Oh, go on.
It's a good NASCAR. It's a good NASCAR game. If it was called Sega NASCAR Championship, it would be fine. But
Definitely. Yeah, it wasn't Daytona, unfortunately.
Nah, no.
It's got its fans, isn't Easy Left maybe is a bit of a fan of it, isn't he? I think he eulogizes saying if you're on the analog or on a wheel, it's great, and just give it a go on that, which I've not done. But they did a good job with the graphics, but it's just a bit of the thing with that team is they've got, I guess you'd say it's the confidence to build the handling from the ground up and like make it their own. So they had some hits, and with that one, don't know, a bit of a miss for me, but
I unlocked the Hornet in it as well because you can put a cheat in to actually get the Hornet, but it doesn't look like the Hornet. It's the same colours as the Hornet, but it's too small.
Yeah, it is small. Yeah.
I That's what I love about the original Saturn Daytona. It's just got that big arcade car. Just
yeah, it's chunky, isn't it? It's
brilliant.
Admittedly, nicks all the polygons from the rest of the background, but as long as you got the chunky car, that's what I want. But it felt so meaty, that original car, and to be fair, I didn't. We were chatting the other day actually about popping and all the sort of clipping problems and stuff with those early games. And frame rates, your bugbear tips, but I just never used to notice. I mean, I was fixated on the car. And it looked great, and it handled brilliantly, and
gameplay was spot on with it, because we were so into the arcade, the year before the Saturn came out. It was like, they had one on Eastbourne Pier, and we would go down there like every Saturday morning and stuff, and just be popping those pounds into the machine, which like seemed crazy at the time when we'd been playing Street Fighter 2 for like 20p a pop, and it was just an experience like no other. It's like, I mean, when I first saw that game, I was like, this looks like it's from like 15 years in the future or something. It was just unreal. And yeah, it was just great. There was a Ridge Racer machine next to it, and like it seriously put it to shame. Nobody was concentrated on Ridge Racer. Like
you say next to it, but it's like you have to give props to Eastbourne Pier, right? Because they have this big like it's old Victorian pier. You can picture the massive sort of dome thing, big old double doors, and you go in, and they had Daytona there. And it's like it's a cramped arcade, all the sort of like stand-up units like piled high or packed in together, and they'd given Daytona its space. It was like
it was the centerpiece.
It's like you picture like E3, with the sort of big podiums they used to have of like things in the center and stuff. It was like that, you can imagine the spotlights pointing on it. And then about 3 meters that way, Ridge Racer. It's like, yeah, come on, know your place.
That's the thing as well, like with Daytona on an arcade, that nobody points out that because it's running on the first version of Model 2, it also has pop-in. It's just a lot further down the track, but it does have it.
Yeah, it does.
As John Linneman said when we had him on, like Daytona was a far harder task for Saturn to do than what Ridge Racer was for PS1. True. Like, it's like 40 cars on the track, man. Yeah. Come on.
Crazy amount.
Those are the crashes, and I remember on the arcade, like with a car, going above your head, and you can see the exhaust on the bottom of the chassis and stuff. And I got them on Saturn, and it did it. It did the crashes. It did the cars flipping over your head, the spinning around you, it did it. And so forgive those frame rates, janky as they are.
Because I'm convinced that you never see the front of the Ridge Racer car if you're in third person mode. You just constantly just see the back of it. So
it's because the track moves. It's that fixed camera. You're not controlling the car. You're controlling the scenery around the car.
That's actually an interesting way to look at it. Yeah,
it's like that's what I love about Sega racers. Is like the camera, the scenery never seems to move apart from towards you, and the car moves everywhere. But on Ridge Race, I just felt as if the car was glued to the track and you were moving the scenery around you. It just, no.
Yeah, that really catches the feel because it's very stiff. It's almost like tank control doing it. And you're like, come on now, Co, have a go.
I always found the momentum really weird, like when it would go into the sliding animation and it sort of seemed detached from physics or something. You know what I mean? It would just kind of pivot from side to side, and it just felt really odd to me. But yeah.
And then there's that announcer.
I like Ridge Racer Type 4. That's when they kind of was getting.
It got fun, and I swear we always put it to show. I can respect Ridge Racer. It did a thing on the PlayStation, but and it's got its place, and it's an important part of history and stuff. And it's, I do respect it, and as a retro fan generally, I've sort of still got fondness for it in its way, but it's almost in the same way, old footballers like become friends down the road. That's a bit how I feel about Ridge Race. It's like, sort of we'll have a glass of wine together. But you are still rubbish.
I do enjoy it, but it's just like it's good, it's enjoyable. but I just don't think it's in the same conversation as Daytona USA,
No.
or it's not, or
it's
even
not.
virtual racing. I mean, virtual racing, I think, is a lot more fun to play, and it has free
Massively
tracks.
more fun. Massively more fun. I'll tell you what, actually, it's saying about this when you were saying about the scenery moving for Ridge Racer, I'm picturing that corner when you come out the tunnel on Dinosaur Canyon Daytona. You come out the tunnel, you start going up that kind of zigzaggy chicane bit, first corner, and then you take that plunging hill. And that, if anything, is more about the car and the scenery being perfectly married together, but also you can tell you're handling the car and not the scenery. That bit, imagine that. Imagine putting the Ridge Racer handling on that bit of scenery. It would just, just light years difference. Anyway, this is it's like when you watch QI and they get the answer wrong and the thing flashes up. I think for me and Tibbs, Daytona and Street Fighter are probably the two. If you mention any of those, it's like Claxton's going off.
Oh, I've got some. Obviously, terrible for Street Fighter, so I've got a Street Fighter question later. We'll probably get onto that. What time are we finishing?
Let me just put an email into work telling them I'm not going to be there.
But before we get into that, obviously, massive Sega fans, and then obviously in the, I say modern day, it's been a while now, but you had the Grigor Ulrich site, which the blog, which obviously named after the flagship.
Yeah.
Go after Kremen, send the flagship. So the Grigor Ulrich. How did that come about?
Well, we got to take you back a bit further, right? Because me and Tiz have been making some form of Sega fan publication since we were like, what, 12, 13?
It was like 1993, I think we first sat down to make something.
Very much in the style of CVG and Me machines. We basically get pictures, snip them out of actual magazines, and glue them into bits of paper and stuff. But we got to reveal the real reason. Was we were. Sounds stupid because obviously it's when we were trying to impress a girl, and so originally,
obviously, a video game fanzine would do that. So.
It's as far as no interest in it at all.
Yeah.
I would just say this because we'll sound like stalkers if we go any further. But we did drop an issue. We did drop an issue round to this girl's house who, as far as I can tell, had no idea who I was because we didn't go to the same school. Just random guy turns up at a door.
I thought we were being innovative. We had no readership, so we made some by dropping it round to their house. It's like a service
on some random girl. And then I think that chastening experience, we carried on making it, but then we never tried foisting it off on any girl. We've just mainly hidden it from girls ever since.
So you were like the in-betweeners before the in-betweeners,
yeah, we'd have been Sega wankers. I think, but I do. We always wonder, don't we? Does she still have it? Is it some kind of weird memento she's kept hold of all these years?
Never know.
But we made those. We sort of then started doing it desktop publishing on the computer for a bit, and then obviously once the internet came about, we started doing Grigorig about, I don't know, that wasn't quite right at the start. There's a bit of a gap.
No, I think it was 2010, wasn't it, or something? We started doing that, and that was actually set up by our friend Lartens. He actually came up with the name Grigorig because he was like a big Panzer Dragoon saga fan as well. So he set it up and kind of just set us up with our profiles on it to basically run it as kind of like, I don't know, just a fun site, bit of news on there and stuff. But I mean, I was really into UK resistance at the time, so I was like, I was taking influence of that, like with the comedy and stuff like that, trying to write funny stuff and things that's a few questionable jokes and all that sort of stuff. But, yeah,
I think I just got carried away because I think I don't know how they thought this was worthwhile, but I managed to get press passes for a bunch of the sites and stuff, Capcom and Sega, and just tried it on. Basically, we never used the assets for the stories. I just enjoyed being behind the scenes and being able to see all these press releases coming out, and so that was probably my main benefit. And none of these these things didn't do anything, but it's same as I guess doing the podcast. It's just fun, isn't it? It's just fun, hanging out with your mates, talking games, doing stuff about games. And for this one, it's such a great reason to play games as well, because we've got you guys obviously in the same boat, but got the Fenrir, got the GDMU, got this massive sea of games now waiting to be played, and it's great. But what I tend to find find myself doing is like playing it for 10 minutes, thinking, oh, I've got to try the next one, because you just want to get through this massive backlog you've got. And actually doing this, we said to each other, you know what's good is if we just sit down and say, let's just play one game and then talk about it. Like you focus and we've been completing games and like unlocking stuff and overcoming how hard some are, like, you know, and actually just focusing is such a good thing to do it. And just being able to chat, that's always been the thread, hasn't it? Just something to kind of do together. Yeah.
No, it's brilliant. I mean, that really comes across. And yeah, your Wonder Boy 4 one, which I really need to play now after watching your video, because it sounds brilliant. I love the other Wonder Boys, but never got round to that one for whatever reason. Obviously, it being in Japanese didn't help, but that really comes across. I mean,
it's a great game.
Is it going to remain Sega focused? Because I think everything that you got on there at the moment is you've got Alpha 2, obviously a Capcom game, but on the Sega Saturn. You've got you've got Monster World 4. You've got the Snatcher video that went up a couple of days ago. And obviously there's a lot of Sega iconography on there. Your logo is basically the Gunstar Heroes logo. Your video is the Sonic CD video background and stuff and all that sort of stuff. So I love it. Is it going to stay Sega focused? Or do you think you might branch out a little? Because
I think the idea was that we would primarily be Sega. Like, you know, I mean, like one of the reasons we even called it Gaming for Ages is because I wanted to get that little ages switching around to Sega on our little sign there and stuff. Yeah, that's just cool. But I think we kind of, I mean, we did talk initially, didn't we, about you know, at some point, because we're like big fans of like the original Mario Kart or something like that. Like further down the line, I think we'll get around to some other things. But right now, we got so much Sega in our system, we need to just focus on that, I suppose.
I think we were talking and saying, let's just let it be us, you know. And I think the games that come out are very much just what we genuinely like, and that is it's a massive amount of Sega cream at the top of that, which you've got to get through. But you know, in my top 10, there's definitely a few of the like Nintendo IPs and stuff, and some of these games that are on there, Fenrir, like the Japanese back catalogue and stuff. Like we're definitely chatting about saying, I want a chance to play those. You know, it's a really good reason to play things that we haven't had a crack at before. And I think they'll come through as well. But I think the driver is just let it be us. You know, what do we fancy playing? It's kind of it's not been big commercial names so much so far. It's just been like, oh yeah, I was reading about so-and-so and let's do that. And because once World 4, I think the translation's been out for ages. It goes back to one of the minis, doesn't it? But I think one of us had like heard about it or read something about it, and Martin on Twitter was always going on about the series and stuff. And we were just chatting about it. Oh, let's do that. You know, I haven't had a go of that. So it's kind of that simple, but inevitably we're just too much in love with Sega for much else to creep in, but bits and pieces. Yeah.
Superb. I mean, I love the idea because it just hits so well. Because
cheers.
It just seems so simple, but it's like no one else has actually thought of it like doing it like that, just playing a single game. You play that and you play that game and you concentrate. And yeah, it was great to hear that when you played Monster World 4, you both saw it through to the end. Although it sounded like the last bits gave you a little bit of trouble.
Oh, that last level, mate. Yeah, it's just I think they've repeated about the background about 50 times. It's just like all the same sprites come back. It's like this feels like some devs that are a bit knackered and just want to finish the game.
They just want to see it out or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, it's great to it's a refreshing kind of way to do it, as I don't think it's really been done that way anywhere else. And yeah, it just concentrating on one game and going ahead with it is great. So it's a superb approach to doing it. As far as the Grig is concerned, are you still going to? Because I think it went a little bit quiet on there for a bit. Are you going to go back to the Grig?
We actually lost control of it, and it turned into some kind of weird gambling site or something. Someone else got the name, but we did get it back.
I think for about 5 years it was a Chinese gambling site.
It was something weird like that.
I keep expecting why would they, unless that means something in Chinese, but why they would take that thing. But it definitely wasn't because it had loads of traffic that they wanted to nick.
I think we had about 3 comments like from other people over the years or something, so we were not popular. but it was fun, and that was the main thing. So
and that's the thing, I love writing, and you know, about 10-15 years ago I did a lot of stuff like online music blogs and stuff, going to gigs and doing write-offs and album reviews and all that stuff. And it's just fun writing, same way as it's just fun chatting about games. But I think I can certainly see there'll be the odd thing where we're like, oh, this needs a bit more, a bit more detail. Let's whack it on the blog. So it's still there. But to be honest, it's just so much fun doing the videos.
We should probably start putting some of our new videos on it. It's kind of a little bit of a distant memory, I guess, at the minute. But yeah.
And you haven't just got the book club. Oh, sorry, James, go on.
I was just saying, remember we started as a blog?
We did. We did start.
We started as a blog after that conversation, and then I think it was a DM I says to Dan, it'd be better as a podcast. Want to try a podcast?
You're right. It worked.
It really does. Hey, listen, I've got to say, I think you two are just excellent in front of the camera on the mic. I said to you before, James, I actually mostly listen to you in the car, so I'm on Apple more than YouTube. But so it works really well on both. But you both speak so well. You make the topics interesting. But I think it's the same thing that we were chatting about just before. I just love it when you go off on tangents and you're just chatting about what you've got a topic, and you always cover the topic really well, but you go off on the tangents and like it's Transformers or games, or it's something that the two of us really love as well. But you just talk so freely and easy, and it's the same thing that I love about your stuff. Is like you just talk so freely. It's so engaging, and it just really brings you in. I really feel like, you don't have to love the games that you're talking about to come in and find that engaging. And so same thing. I think when you give yourself license just to kind of chat freely, just talk about what you want to talk about, helps, doesn't it? Really helps.
Aye. And you can see that's the way you guys have approached it as well. I say, like as Dan said, it's a format nobody's done before. And I think but that's the thing. It's like that's what we've all got to try and do with this whole content thing, is you've got to try and find like your niche. And I think what you've done, and you've done it really well, the stuff that you've done so far, I've absolutely loved it. It's been brilliant. And like I say to Dan, like I see a lot of similarities with you two, like to us, because it's quite similar. Like we can, like it's just
that's a compliment to us, mate. To be honest,
that is.
I'm not so sure you want to drag yourself down.
No, but it's like, you know what I mean. It's like you come on and you sit and you just talk shite for half an hour before hitting record, and then you decide we'll just keep talking what we were talking about before we hit record, and we'll just turn it into a show. And and as you said, you just talk about what you want to talk about. And like some people in the early days when we did the podcast, we got comments about the tangents. I think it's one person way back at the start said this episode was a bit too laughy. And I was like, what do you mean laughy? Like it was too much laughter in it. Like stick to the point. And I'm like, no, we're not changing that, man.
That's what makes it really good, I think. Like, I mean, I think when I first found your show, I think you only had like 3 episodes or so on your podcast, but I was like, oh, this is really good, and I like stuck with it. And it's just, I don't know.
How did you stick with it? How did you stick with it after the first 2, man?
No, I tell you, I've got some great memories of like listening to you guys, like before you had that break that time. Like I think you did like a Daytona episode and that. And I remember I had it on my phone and I went for like a walk on the downs on the south coast, and I was like just cracking up at the stuff you were saying. But it was also what you were saying about the game as well. It was so like resonated with me, and it was like, it was just a brilliant show. So
cheers.
Thank you very much.
Well, I just got to chat one in. What was that episode you're doing? I think it was about all the Sonics. And what's the Sonic, Dan, that you hate? And it's
Spinball.
You just went off on one, like
it went that pure rant.
It was so good.
Did you not just go, sorry, Spinball, I fucking hate that game? It was just
I just went into one. Absolutely went into one about Sonic Spinball.
I remember because it's a Sonic 8-bit episode. And I seen you get off that, and I just sat back and folded my arms. I'm like, I'm just going to settle in for this one. And he just went off, man.
But I feel it. I feel it because, I said about the trigger words. I think not Ridge Racer maybe a bit for me, but I've got 2, like Mortal Kombat and Gran Turismo, right? No disrespect to them. I've got, I appreciate them. And I'm not going to go into it now because I can feel the pressure rising. But I just don't get it. I watched what was it, Mr. Thunderwing's video recently, and he's got a whole bit in it where he's talking about, he's a massive arcade racer fan, And then
Yeah.
Gran Turismo starts coming in, and he's like, you know, he just doesn't get it. And I'm like, mate, this is like you're reading my brain. I respect it. It looked amazing. It's for the time, it was just beautiful. But I was like, hang on a minute, have they forgotten to do the handling? Where's the power slides?
Yeah,
like,
I remember the first corner I came to. I was like, this isn't like a Sega arcade. What's going on here?
What's his quote? It's like, I'd rather do a power slide than spend like 10 goes trying to learn how to park a Ford Focus or something. It's like, anyway,
it's school, man.
But
That's true. When Gran Turismo came out,
yeah.
it was like people started like coming out of school talking about tire pressure and camber height, and I'm like,
I mean,
you're 14 or something, man. You don't need to know about this.
I mean, you've got to call it a classic. You've got to call it great with a capital G, but it doesn't mean you have to think it's, you know, fun. So anyway, right. The point being, like, I get where you're coming from with that kind of rage. It sort of sits in there. So
yeah.
Anyway,
there are games that trigger you, and yeah, you see a lot of the classics that you do kind of have to, you respect them, but they're kind of just not like for you. It's like the Spider-Man games on the PlayStation 4. I'm just like, no, they're just poor Arkham games. I did like your Snatcher video, Dibs. That you did. That's what I loved. Is like, and it's such a brilliant cinematic experience, much better than those PlayStation games. God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn.
I was thinking, oh man, I'm going to get some heat for that. Thankfully, I think we're too small at the minute. So.
Everyone go
watch
check
out
out.
for the watch out for the oh no, it's Alex finding you. That's that you've been.
Oh really? He's the one.
He'll find you, dude. You're in the fire line.
Like, dude, what are you doing?
But it's Sega gamers. We just are conditioned to be a certain way, haven't we? We grow up with that certain feel of games and expect things to be a certain way. And it's just like going back to some of these games. They do feel sterile and banal, and it's
and I can see why people love them, and I do get the quality of them is amazing. You know, the God of War series is amazing in its way, but you know, I was playing it through on the PS4. I don't know which, either the first one or Ragnarok, I can't remember, but I'm thinking it's really impressive. But when's the last time I actually did anything? Like, when's the last time I actually was in control of what's going on? And you know, it's impressive and it's great, and I do respect people liking it. I'm never going to get down on them, but it's that thing. I'm conditioned to love it a certain way, and I suppose there's something else we all share as well, which is, you know, I'm a dad with kids. I don't have time for 4-hour RPGs. I've got 5 minutes here and there to like.
I don't have time to sit with the controller and watch an unskippable cutscene. You know, it's like that totally resonates. Like, if I get a spare fight, and even more so now, the fact that I've got like a newborn, if I get any chance to play a game, it'll be a Sega game because it's like that quick arcade hit. Like, the time you put on God of War, it's like you're sitting with the controller in your hand, like, and I feel my palms, like, literally, they're not just sweating, but my fingers are kind of like tapping the back of the pad. I'm like, I can't fucking skip this. I need, let me do something, and then the game lets you do something. You walk 3 feet, and you get another cutscene. It's like,
mate, I'm so with you.
No, the thing that gets me is like sometimes I'll put the controller down on those PS4 games. I'll put it down and just the cutscene's just playing. I'll be doing something else. Like sometimes I'm even going to put dinner on, and I think it annoys me. It makes me laugh at the same time because it's like the audacity of it is that like something happens in the cutscene that makes the controller vibrate. I'm just thinking, I don't care. It's like, what is that adding to my gaming experience there? Like there's no engagement from me, but the controller's vibrating on the table. Going, no, picking me up and pay attention to me.
Yeah, the pad of the machine having a great time, but I'm just getting a cup of tea. But it's not obviously brand new games, because we were saying about on Snatcher that end sequence is about 25 minutes of
I couldn't believe it at the time. I was like, what is this? It's still going. But
and the thing is, then it was like you'd never seen that, you know, it was amazing. Obviously the cinematics in that, and then same thing when Final Fantasy VII was out, you know, we just hadn't, you know, Panzer and Saga obviously there first, but we just hadn't seen that, and it was so exciting. But now it's like, another cinematic that I can't skip.
Snatcher is just magic, though. It's just
really
absolute
good.
magic, and it reminded me that I really need to replay it again. I keep saying to myself when it gets to Christmas, because it's a Christmas game.
Yeah. Is it Napoleon? That
Napoleon
character
in his
dresses
Santa,
up
in
in-
his Santa outfit.
yeah. No, but I tell you what, like I didn't enjoy it any less coming back to it all these years later. It was still like really good, still had me on the edge of my seat, like just completely involved and transfixed on everything that was going on. It's just such a good game, and it really has like lasted the test of time, I think. So
Getting chills thinking about it, because it really is, I think, one of his greatest games. And I'm a big Kojima fan. I actually love Death Stranding. It's great. I know we've been talking about these long slog games of massive long cutscenes, but for some reason Death Stranding really hit with me.
But if they're good enough, then it's all right. You know, if the guy's got actual cinematic chops like Kojima's got, you'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll watch this. But
it's the Amazon delivery simulator.
But do you know the bit that clicked for me? The bit that clicked for me in that game was where you had to deliver a pizza. That was, and it sounds bizarre. It sounds bizarre. You're carrying all these things, these supplies to people at the first bit of the game. And my wife is a massive crush on Norman Reedus, so she got me the PS4 for Christmas with that game. And she was like, we played The Last of Us on PS3, and she watched as I played it. She loved it. She got us that, and was like thinking the same thing. Within 3 hours, she tapped out. She's like, I can't watch this shit anymore. So she just left me to it. And there was a point where I was just like, what am I doing with this? And then I don't know why, but it got to this bit. You get to this big like sequence, and you get out, and it's like, right, your next mission is you've got to take these pizzas to this guy over there, and obviously you got to keep the pizza in a certain position. And it became, for some reason, it became really cathartic to just try and make sure that I'm like walking along with all these like instruments on my back and all these other deliveries, but holding this pizza in a perfect position. I just don't understand. But the guy's a genius. But
he is.
Write that on the back of the box. Imagine that. It's like cathartic experience delivering pizzas, 10 out of 10. And driver.
There we go. That's the quote. I mean, there's a sequel coming out, so but no, Snatcher is up there. Top 3 Kojima game. Maybe even top that and the original Metal Gear top 2.
Yeah,
absolutely phenomenal. It doesn't age. It's absolutely superb. Is that your copy from back in the day, by the way?
It is. It was. I actually lost it at one point. Well, I had a friend called Chris, and like he actually was the original owner of it. And I went around his house and I played it there. But he then like sold it to his cousin or something. And then it was like a couple years later, I was like, man, that game Snatcher was so good. I really want to play it again. And like I got him basically to ring up his cousin and like see he was up for selling it. And we like drove like an hour to their house and like just like took like a tenner in or whatever it was. And that's the copy like that I originally played, and I still have it now. So
Jesus
thankfully
Christ.
I didn't have to spend the 550 quid, whatever it is.
No, you just have to become Liam Neeson out of Taken, ringing people up.
Exactly, yeah.
I will find you, and I will tell you.
Although you know what, I had a near. Well, it was like a kind of like a story that kind of haunts me a bit to this day, where I was at a boot fair in like 2000. And I was like, it was a really good time for buying retro games because of like, basically no one wanted Mega Drive or SNES or anything like that. It was all just like junk to people. And I was like, man, these are the games that were like 40, 50 quid when I was a kid. I'm buying up as many as I can. And so like, I was just like hit the boot fairs, like, and I was walking past one particular store and there was a red bucket on the floor. I always remember it caught my eye and there was a copy of Snatcher in it. And I was like, oh man, I could do with a second copy, just like, in case my other one gets broken or whatever and stuff like that. And it was like this lady was like chatting to someone for forever. And I ended up being like, you know what, this is going on too long. I'm just going. And I walked away. And then like, obviously all these years later, when you see how much it goes for, it's like, I'm like kicking myself for not picking up that copy. But but at least thankfully I have my original one. So...
Mate, I was saying to you last year though, I played it through and I played it on the emulator because I've got a copy, but my Mega CD just makes a bit of a nasty noise. I'm too afraid to put it in there. I'm too afraid to play the disc. And I'm saying I just need to sell it. It's just gathering dust. It's like it's lovely owning like a piece of a gaming that we love so much, but it's just gathering dust. So
I'll give you 50p for it.
Deal.
We got a Model 1 or a Model 2?
Oh, I got
Oh yeah, no, same as you. Both
yeah, Model 1, yeah.
Oh yeah, I've got the Model 2, the old. No, it's
Then
not the Tower
send
of
it to
Power.
Simon. Get it off to Simon. Get it to Argan. Get him to fix it.
I've got a long list of things. So I got two Bell Saturns, Mega CD, and then I was at that same boot fair over the summer, and I bought a PS2. I took it around Dib's house, and we plugged it. And the guy said the disc tray's a bit dodgy, and that's it. Pressed the eject button, and there was like an instant smell of burning and smoke.
Oh yeah, it was quite distinct. I was
Diamond. That's on the list for you as well.
Fire extinguisher.
It does work, but you just got to have the fire extinguisher handy just in case.
Jesus.
Oh God! Unfortunately, I've only got the reproduction copy of Snatcher. I only got it a few years ago off like it's a really good reproduction copy actually.
Yeah.
Looks spot on.
Is it an Etsy thing? Like, oh, that looks
yeah.
It's obviously tells you that it's a reproduction, which it's not really cool to say for it to be spot on. You need to be able to tell. You don't want to be able to palm it off as the real thing, but it's close enough. Obviously, it's Mega CD, no copy protection whatsoever, so you can just stick it in there. It's a really high quality, but it was something like 15 quid or something. It's probably the best 15 quid I've ever spent.
It's well worth it. And like, I'll tell you what, with mine, like I say, I have thought about selling it on because I'm not using the disc really. And I thought, what if in my naivety when I bought it 15, 20 years ago, whenever it was, I've bought a repro, and then obviously now it's in proper collector territory. And I'm like, am I gonna sell it? And it turns out I've had a dud all this time, and then some eBay fella's gonna come for me, and it's so all of that means it's still in the box.
No, but yeah. So obviously we're going to talk about your first video now, which is of course Street Fighter Alpha 2. So obviously but here comes the Street Fighter question. You're both massive Street Fighter fans, right?
Massive, yeah.
Both find it in the both play it in the arcade first of all. Street Fighter 2, that is.
Yeah. Back in the day, yeah.
Because
that was like a game changer.
It really was. Obviously, Dibs, one of the first videos I saw was the Street Fighter 2 video, and I think you did that was done so well with the looking through the pages of Mean Machine, seeing the announcement, everything, just taking us on that journey, and just really drove home like that whole experience back in the day of us being poor little Sega fans, and unless you were a Bezel, you weren't able to play at home. But you imagine you like you were saying before, you were all clamoring around Ben's to play it on the SNES, weren't you?
Yeah. He never gave us a chance because he could practice it while we weren't there, so he'd just like destroy us every time. But
I was still terrible.
Yeah, you were out of order. But when it came out on the Mega Drive, that's when I could actually like figure it out a lot more. Because I mean, like we played it in the arcade a lot. Because I was quite fortunate actually. Like at our school that back in the day, like it had the guy there. He was like capitalizing on the whole Street Fighter thing, and I think he shipped in like about 6 or 7 coin-ops into this corner shop that was outside of our school. So basically like everyone was in there, but it was like really good because it made a nice kind of like competitive environment, because everyone's like talking trash to each other the whole day and stuff, and then you go down to the corner shop after school for the showdown of Street Fighter 2 and all this sort of stuff. And it was like, it was really cool. But but it was when it came out on the Mega Drive, that's when I could really learn what it's all about and stuff, and get all the tactics and combos and stuff like that down. Well, as much as I can.
Yeah.
It's like some of those CPS1 links. Yeah. I still struggle with that, but they look really cool when people do them. So I'd love to nail that at some point.
Which you can't do in the Super Nintendo version.
That's true. Yeah, that is true.
Not that back in the day I would have stood a chance of doing them anyway. I was just going to say, I always say about that corner shop, we just didn't know how lucky we were, did we? Because I mean, it wasn't outside my school. I went in there a few times, obviously played on their Street Fighter arcade, but the fact that a little corner shop, I mean, this is like a tiny little shop, right? It's like news agents, basically, isn't it? And it just had a bunch of coin ops. And then Street Fighter arcades were just everywhere, aren't they? I'm saying to you, not in our Street Fighter video, it's a different one, we got chatting about this, but like there's a kebab shop in our hometown and they had a Street Fighter arcade, and like you just find them everywhere. Like everyone just had a Street Fighter
Everyone
arcade.
Wanted a piece of that action. I mean, it was the biggest thing. I would walk from shop to shop and there was a Street Fighter arcade in every one. It was crazy.
Chunners.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
same.
for those that are on the audio side of listening to the podcast, what James has done as well, we've been just reminiscing about the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo version of Street Fighter 2. James is brandishing his Amiga version of Street Fighter 2 and giving it a middle thing.
Would you like to fight Gale? Put that disc in. Would you like to fight Blanca? Put that disc in.
Oh man,
would you like to go back to the title screen? Put that disc in. It's like,
they hit you right before you stacked multiple disk drives on top of each other. Yeah, that's one way to do it.
We had no idea the pain you Amiga owners were going through. I'm sorry.
Sorry
for your pain.
That was my tower of power. Was 3 external daisy chained floppy drives.
Right.
So I didn't have to swap discs to play that.
I said to you earlier, we had 4 of us with our Segas. And our one mate with an Amiga, and we never played it. And I always wondered why. I think I know why now.
No, I mean, I had a friend with an Amiga, and it had some decent stuff on there.
Lovely
but,
stuff.
there's some brilliant stuff.
Blogo's pal video the other day. He was like doing random British licenses.
Oh my god,
that Viz game. Oh man, that brought back memories. That was so good.
That was, for me, that was one of the wonders for me, and like home computer generally, but like Amiga had some brilliant stuff in it, and I did love the look of its graphics. Even on those games, on that Fizz one, brilliant sprites. I mean, really well made characters. Like they catched it perfectly. That bloody hello game.
I know.
Anyway, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but I mean, there's some games that came to the Amiga that came to the Mega Drive from the Amiga that were lesser games. I mean, James, when we did that Amiga discussion a few years ago now, was it two? It must have been 2 years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and
that's great video, that one. Yeah, enjoyed that.
Yeah,
was that the Amiga on the Mega Drive, or wasn't it?
That was it. Yeah.
So
it was a very capable machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I got fond memories for like a few. There'd be someone who had one. Like I remember these family friends, like mum and dad and the 2 sisters. They had friends with the parents, friends with their 2 kids, and then there was just me. But they had an Amiga with settlers on it, and we used to go around there for dinner parties, and they'd all go off and get pissed in the dining room, and I'd just be sat in their hallway playing settlers for about 5 hours. It was great.
I say that the Amiga is the only computer or console that's ever led to me seeing a police raid.
How come?
Because I used to go to the Barras with my uncle on weekends. There's a famous market in Glasgow, the Barras Market. And they've got like kind of the stalls, but there's little kind of small tenement buildings scattered about, and inside there it's all different wee rooms with cellars, different things. And there was this one room that we used to go to all the time. It was a bootleg Amiga, like copied Amiga games. And you would walk in, and on the wall they would just have like sheets of A4 paper with like numbers and then like the name of the game. And behind the counter was like these black briefcases, right? And these are just full of the discs, all rubber banded together, like kept.
Just got his image of like Pulp Fiction, when they open up the briefcase, going, "We good,
we good, are we happy? We happy." But basically, so you would go in there, and there was this. I can still see this woman. The place was like, no smoking bans in the 90s. The room was just thick with smoke. There's a woman with shaved in hair, like fucking tattooed arms, sleeveless denim waistcoat, right? Standing there saying like that. I help you. And it was like £2 for your first disc and £1 for every disc after. So suffice to say, she fucking smiled for the first time whenever I asked for Rise of the Robots, because that cost 14 quid. But you used to go in and like you would walk up and pick what game. So I'll have number 14, like ordering a takeaway, you know what I mean? Like a 14, a 14, a 7, and a 25. And he would go in and he'd open up the briefcase, just slide the discs across the counter like some dodgy counterfeit goods that they were. You'd give your money over and off you went. But on this one occasion, at the point that we were handing over our cash and other people were waiting, the cops busted in, told everybody to put everything down, like, and raided the place for copyright.
Oh man.
It's like, there's me standing, this would have been what, 92, 93, so I'm like 13, 14, like the most timid kid in the school, like basically thinking I'm going to jail because I bought like Rise of the Robots on Pirate. It's like,
you're back in school and a bit quiet. What's up with James? He's seen stuff, man. He's seen stuff.
Sitting in geography like that. Just
great
rattling.
Great to think of the cops back in the yard, like on the next working day. It's like they've with the vice squad. Oh, we've had a bust. Hey, what have you got in? Yeah, two grand's worth of coke, man. What have you got in? Yeah, we scored a bunch of hookers. We took them down. What about you? Oh yeah, 50 Amiga games in a briefcase. Took them down.
I mean, Street Fighter 2 on the Amiga was a crime anyway.
Aye,
Yeah, we say cleaning up the streets.
We scared the shit out of some poor kid as well. You should have seen him. He pissed himself.
Oh no.
Oh god. Oh, but where were we? Street Fighter.
Street Fighter. Yeah.
So
Tangents.
So did you guys go from Special Champion Edition to Super and then to Alpha 1, or did you just go to Alpha 2? Because obviously Alpha 2 was
we did everything, didn't we? And
did you?
Yeah.
But you were, like I said before, Dibs has to fill in half of my memory half the time. And he was saying about like, yeah, remember you got Alpha 2 and you brought it round and we were all playing Alpha 1 and it was so slow and we suddenly realised. And then you went home and we realised that we hadn't realised there was a speed setting on Alpha 1 and turned it up for about
we've been playing it like slow like the whole time. And then like the contrast between Alpha 2, it's like, oh man, this is like really uncomfortable to play now. And then I went into the settings like, all right, I can't actually speed it up. Like the whole time we've been playing it was slow basically. But thankfully we didn't know at the time. We had nothing to measure it against, I suppose, did we? So it was all good in the end.
I think we've had between us pretty much every version of we, and like
they've
all just got massive extended play. You know, it's like it's such you just be around each other's houses for hours, just constantly like passing the pads around. Like we did, you know, we'd be good and like run through all the characters and stuff, and we got. You know, talk about getting the value out of a game. Every one of those got rinsed to death. But I think we went through the whole series. Obviously, that anticipation of yours when they were coming to the Mega Drive, I can still feel what it was like to be around you.
Oh man,
vibrating with it. It's like...
I was like, I actually, Jazz Rignall actually saw that video, and he said something to the effect of like, you know, there hasn't been something like it before or since, like the how huge that game was when it hit the Mega Drive. It was like, you know, I was like counting down the seconds. Actually, I think I say in my video as well that like my mum went to town and like, you know, I don't know what she was doing there, but she like went into Boots where I had it pre-ordered on the day before it was coming out, and they just like gave it her, and she came like to Bedgill's house because she knew I was there, and like I totally wasn't expecting her to have it. And like she'd left it at home, like on the stairs or something. I was like, why didn't you bring it with you? So I literally just hightailed it straight out of there. I was like running home just to get this game. But oh man, what a game it was.
Yeah. I'll never forget when I got it. I mean, I played it on my friend's Super Nintendo beforehand, and I was just in love with it, and I was desperate for it. And it was like your video just resonated how I felt at the time, because I was really desperate for it.
Yeah,
and I was just like, it's going to be the ultimate version. It's got this one's now got the super versions in there. And look, it goes all the way up to 10 stars. You don't have to put a cheat code in.
And the thing is, I know we're preaching to the converted with you two, but for that Mega Drive one, and then obviously for the Saturn one, the pad is such a massive part of it, because you know I've played it on a bunch of consoles, and you know I'm not a stick player. I've got an arcade stick for Street Fighter 6, but you know I've never really been a stick. Divs plays a lot of it all through 4 and 5s, but the pad going from SNES to Mega Drive, that 6-button pad, it's just beautiful. And they, you know, you see a lot of links when you look back through the history between Sega and Capcom, and a part of me wonders if they collaborated, because they're so in synergy. That D-pad, just the roll on that Saturn D-pad especially, is so beautiful on Street Fighter. Just like, I'm gonna have to pick one up and have a little play of it. Yeah. But it's so perfect in sync. You just wonder if they, you know, like how they talk about when they develop Knights, and obviously the Sega division's like working on the analog to make it out of the game. I seriously wonder if there's a bit where they popped over the road to Capcom and said, "Come on, let's try and make this work, because it's so beautiful." So it's you know, so it's the love for the game, but say it is special on the Sega, and it's for that reason. And obviously Alpha 2 on Saturn like sits above the PlayStation 1 in a bunch of ways. But the pad's a massive thing, and it's nuts. I'm sitting here, I'm age 43, eulogizing about a controller for the 90s, but I just love it. So
that's so good. It's
Yes.
you're right. It does just have like they're almost paired. Like
Yeah.
it just feels like I've never been able to pull Dragon Punches off so effortlessly as I have on the Saturn controller, especially. Like it's beautiful. You said the roll on it for hurricane kicks and fireballs, everything. It just feels so good. Even on the versus games like X-Men versus Street Fighter and all that as well, it just feels so in tune. It's so responsive. Aye,
and it's
but
it's because it's one of Street Fighter's big strengths is how they integrated the special moves with like the feel. So you're doing your Guile Sonic Boom, and you're on the pad doing what he's doing, and pulling back and then going forwards. And with the Dragon Punch, you're crouching down a tiny bit and shooting up, and you feel so in sync. You know that thing about talking about in the Panda video about talking about how they got the feel of Rally on the pad.
Yeah.
And that ability to somehow translate the feel of the mechanics of the game through a D-pad, which is not analog. And Street Fighter did that brilliantly as well. It's so in tune, like the physical with the moves. Yeah, it's just beautiful. I love it to death. So
it's one of those games that I think like you can't. It's hard to put into words to somebody a lot younger just what a phenomenon Street Fighter 2 was. Like it literally was like a global phenom. Like this thing just was everywhere. Everybody who had a screen with any way of playing a game wanted to have a version of it, and it pretty much came to everything.
It did eventually, yeah.
But it was just
for good or ill,
and even the sight of it, and like in the arcade, you're talking about like your kebab shop having like an arcade in it. Like we had a chip shop in the city centre in Glasgow called the Blue Lagoon, and in there they had a Street Fighter 2, they had a Power Drift, and they had a WrestleFest and a chippy.
Oh, I love that game. WrestleFest, amazing.
Oh, so good, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the first place I actually seen Street Fighter 2, the arcade machine, like it was a Burger King. I believe it was a Wimpy before that. And in the right hand corner in Central Station in Glasgow, they had a Street Fighter 2 machine. The first place I seen Champion Edition was at Deep Sea World in Oban. Why is Street Fighter 2 in Deep Sea World?
It was everywhere, wasn't it? It was ubiquitous. I mean, I went on a family holiday, and I think it must have been 1993 or 4. I went to Turkey, and we was eating dinner in a restaurant, and there's a row of restaurants down there, and outside one of them they got a Street Fighter 2 cab, but it said Champion Edition on the side, but it was obviously the modified Rainbow Edition.
Was it real?
Yeah, Rainbow.
It was one of them ones.
Yeah.
So I'm playing a few kids on there, and at this point I've been playing the Mega Drive one a fair bit. I thought I was all right, so I'm playing some guy, and I'm winning, and he goes, wait. Change, hits the start button and switches to Zangief, and then starts doing his lariat, and fireballs are coming out of him.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell's that?
I know.
He's cheating.
So unfair.
He's cheating.
I had the same thing. A kid, like I was playing him on I think it was called Black Belt Edition, this one particular hack version.
Yeah.
He was just like spamming Sonic Booms, like multiple, and they were homing. There was nothing I could do about it. And I was like, oh man, that's so out of order.
Do you remember this because we were saying that obviously I had a bit of an advantage because I had the SNES and I was the only one with Street Fighter at home for a while, and tried to max it out. And then the two of us, but certainly we went into Boots again, one of those random things that Boots used to sell computer games, and they had a stand-up SNES counter right in the next to the medicines and panty line as well, and this got this Street Fighter set up, and I rock up, and we'd obviously had it for a bit and been able to play it. And there's a crowd of kids, and I sort of wait my turn, and then like hand somebody's ass to them on Street Fighter, and like sort of turn around to all these 8-year-olds, like, yeah, that's the way it's done, boys. Feeling really proud. And then what's it? I don't know how much later, but the two of us are on Eastbourne Pier, and there's some fella playing it on his own. Do you remember? And
yeah, I do remember.
One of the big white cabs, and
it was Super Street Fighter 2.
Yeah,
at that point.
And we're thinking, or I was thinking, oh, here we go. Now's a chance. Home veterans here. We're going to bring our skills to the arcade. That's how we absolutely wiped the floor.
Yeah. I mean, he lived on that machine. He was there every single day, all day. It was like, it was the ultimate insult. He let me win the second round so that he could then play the third round and finish me. It was
yeah. So lesson to us all, but it was just it was just everywhere, and it was like, it's definitely, it becomes part of your DNA, doesn't it? Games like that, just same with that Daytona, but Sega is in your DNA. That's why we love it so much. You know, it gets in there, and you know, if it's one thing you look at modern games, there's so much to say good about them, but I just can't see them getting in my DNA in the same way. I think maybe the last time I played a game that genuinely I've took it with me afterwards, maybe Breath of the Wild, because for me that was like, I got so lost in it that it stayed with me since. But I don't know, since back there, they're just, maybe it's part of being a kid and it's formative years and stuff, but I think they were so special.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild wasn't that long ago, though, really. I mean, I suppose it is, but it was still adults. But I was the same with Breath of the Wild. But then Tears of the Kingdom, I was like, yeah, this is good, but it doesn't have the magic that I had in
that.
that.
Doesn't click, does it?
No, it didn't click with me. I did beat the game, but I kind of felt like it was a bit of a chore getting through it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the same.
Breath of the Wild was just, and I think that the fact that we do get those feelings shows that it probably isn't just nostalgia. There's just something about these games. I agree. Tears of the Kingdom, when I first started playing it, I was getting a lot of those old feelings back, and I think I was me and James were doing a podcast, and I think I said it. You know, there's bits of Tears of the Kingdom that are quite janky a little bit, because it tries to do so many different things. And I was like, it's the most Sega-like Zelda I've ever seen, because it was. But then I think it does become it does become a bit of a slog towards the end, and then at that point, it just kind of lost its luster for me.
Yeah,
and it's one of the few times. I mean, like, Divs, you are a frame rate aholic, right? It's got the Sega or the frame rate aholic. All through our lives, you've always like picked up frames. I never really massively noticed them. And like Zelda Breath of the Wild, was that run at 30? I think it's not super slick, but I really feel that. Is it 25? I think on Tears of the Kingdom, but I really feel that loss of like smoothness, because it's hard to just forget you're playing a game when it's just that bit too juddery, and it's like, I don't know, it's a real shame because they just lost some of the magic, like you say. I think,
but 20 FPS Daytona, perfect.
Gameplay's brilliant.
Yeah, I'll have that.
Yeah, I do. Like I say, I remember we came home and we were playing it in your front room, Daytona, and like, it was one of the first things you said. It was like, the frame rate, and I was like, what are you talking about? Let's go. Yeah.
Still play great though.
Still play great, yeah.
I don't think I knew what a frame rate was when I first played Daytona. I noticed the clipping, but not the frame rate.
Yeah. I think it was only from like Rich Ledbetter, you know, when he would write stuff in like the Sega magazines and stuff. I'd be like, oh, right, that's what that's all about.
He was at it all the way back then, wasn't he?
He's always been at it. It's funny looking back and reading that stuff. He's always had that fondness for the technical side, isn't he? He's always been in it.
Sowing the seeds of Digital Foundry.
Yeah.
Back then.
Did he have the plan? I know what I'll do.
Right. Oh, one question I was going to ask: favorite Street Fighter off the cuff? Which one?
Alpha 2.
Special Champion Edition.
Yeah.
I think they're the two, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'd have put absolute millions on you saying Special Champion Edition, because obviously I just think the hours we poured into Alpha 2, it's like, it's the one I'll go back to now. You know, I still appreciate all of them and enjoy them. And obviously some of the older ones, like the music and the feel and the classic memories carry it a little bit, even though they're a bit slow. Alpha 2, just adore it. I do like the modern ones. Divs, you're massively into 4, and
4 I really got into. It was good because it had been away for such a long time, and then for it to come back and like, you know, and then fire up like a tournament scene and all that stuff, like, you know, more in America. Like, I think, Dan, I was talking to you, you were influenced to play E-Honda, weren't you, by Mike Ross, I think.
Yeah, that's right. I got so into 4 because I went through this phase where I was thinking, right, to get my money's worth, it's either £1 an hour, or if I'm playing a fighting game, it's £1 per go. And it got to the point and before my Xbox 360 was stolen, one that I had for years before that was stolen. My matches online were something like 4,000 and something. I
Wow,
was playing so much. Street Fighter 4 in its various guises is one of my favorite games of all time, and I think part of it was because it went away for a while and came back. But when it came back, it was, in my eyes, it was perfect because it played like, it wasn't like Street Fighter EX, and it wasn't even like Street Fighter 3, which I know some of the hardcore guys on the Sims like, it's a downgrade from 3, but for me it played like 2 and Alpha.
Yeah, it reminded me very much of those.
And of course you had the original 12, and you had the 4 new characters, and then you had the unlockables as well. And it was like, because they obviously weren't in the arcade version, it was just absolute magic. 5 was a massive letdown for me.
Yeah,
it was.
It went off track a bit. I mean, I agree with you on 4. Like, coming back, it captured the fluidity. It made they landed the move to the graphical style brilliantly, and kind of, although I don't love it as much as Alpha 2, I do think like, for its time, it did something properly special, and never to the standard you did. And obviously, when we play now, my God, you're about a million light years ahead of me. But it's great. 5 kind of went off the rails. I do really like 6. I've not played it enough to really get it, but I do really like it.
I love 6. I put like about 100 hours into it the first month that it came out. I was hooked on it, and for some reason, I got up to platinum and did all the story mode and arcade modes, and then just dropped it. And I don't know why. And now I'm worried. Now I've got this fear about going back, because I feel like if I go back now and I start playing at platinum level, I'm going to get my absolute arse handed to me. I'm going to get downgraded to like silver or something. So I'm just like, I'm not ready to go back yet.
Yeah, because I guess now everyone knows the tech and all the counter moves to everything, don't they? It's like the study that goes into these games of frame data and all that stuff that they study on like event hubs and things. It's like, it's crazy.
You got Akuma and Terry Bogard in there now. I don't know how they play. I've got no idea. I'll come against them. I'm not going to know what to do. Oh, good. Right. One thing I was thinking is we just do a bit of a classic My Favorite Sega with you guys. Obviously, obviously, you're gonna have 2 music choices. So I was thinking we'll play one now and then one to see us out at the credits. So who wants the middle song and who wants the credit song?
Ooh, God, you get the
decisions.
Okay, so favorite song. So okay. So it's got to be From Nights into Dreams. That's like such a big game to me, and it's like real special. And the music in that, like, that just lifted my mood in dark times and all this sort of stuff. It's like a real important thing to me. And I think I was actually thinking about this yesterday. I thought my favorite was the Suburban Museum one, the one that goes to Soft Museum. I mean, I love that song. But then when I listened to it next to this other song that I'm going to say is my favorite, it was it just took second place. But my favorite is Growing Wings, that when you're playing flying over Twin Seed City and stuff, it's like that's that one. Once that, you have that little bit at the beginning, don't you, when you're on the cloud and you have to jump off to turn into nights and stuff, when that little melody kicks in, and oh man, I just like can close my eyes and just be transported to happy. Completely. So that's my nomination for that
was one. Was it the Rock did at WrestleMania? The goosebumps.
Right. Let's play that.
It
right
really
now.
does. Yeah.
Growing Wings. Oh, do you know what? I absolutely love that tune. So
Yeah.
superb choice. Nights into Dreams is it's one of my favorite games of all time, and the soundtrack is fantastic.
Phenomenal.
I've not got any others, but I've got the Data Disc vinyl upstairs. And I've had that on a lot and subjected my family to it, or given them the pleasure of it numerous times on the, on the record player.
It's a treat. It is a treat.
Yeah, it's
Actually, as soon as you mentioned
wonderful.
Nights, I think I can't believe you haven't mentioned it already. Because again, another one that gives you the feels with the. Well, we mentioned briefly the analog pad, but it's just such a beauty. I know you guys love it to death, and I won't go down it, but it's just such a gem, such a gem. The music complements it perfectly. Good choice.
it's almost perfect. I think it goes to sets out to do what it needs to do. It succeeds on so many levels, and it's just such a shame. You see, I was looking at some game magazine covers the other day. It said Sega's answer to Mario Sega 4. Sega fights back against Mario 64. It's like, it's not that sort of game.
No,
it's not that sort of game at all.
And even Sega Saturn magazine did it as well.
They did.
That's on the cover of the review issue. Like Sega's answer to Mario 64 is like, it's not. It's an arcade score attack game.
I like it, man.
Can't look past the devs, could they? They just thought, oh, it's Sonic Team. They must be about to produce a platform. But it's actually. Do you remember last year we were doing the score attack on the Christmas nights? And my God, some of those pulled out some scores, didn't they? But I really like. It's so many years since I've put that many hours into it. And when you start to get it and the links start to come together and you start plugging it, oh my God, it's so satisfying. It's just so satisfying. You know, you really get not just Knights, you get the idea of score attack, that kind of repeat play and the satisfaction of seeing it come together. Oh, it's so good.
Do you know who is absolutely phenomenal at that game? See, Peter Malik from Shiro. He is. See if you see some of his gameplay footage of Knights, the guy is like, I've not seen any. Like Dan is brilliant at it. I'm nowhere at Dan's level, but in Saturn, Dave, he's good as well. But like Peter's like another level. He's like the over jump kind of. I know the over jump, the easy right maybe guy.
Yeah.
He the guy does the Sega Rally times.
He's
like
done Fits, right?
Yeah. He's insane.
See, weird thing back in like our other two Saturn fan mates, Lartens and Chris, just I never remember you did it too, Dis, but I remember it was mainly those two. They just used to go like hammer and tongs trying to get their scores up.
Yeah.
And Lartens worked something out, and it's this bit of our folklore in our friendship group that Lartens worked this thing out that Chris couldn't work out. To link the whole of the second level together?
So it was like, basically in the first level of I think it was Claris's run. You can only get a certain number of links, like before you get to the links break. I think you can actually backward link the track or something like that, but that was like a technique we didn't know about. But he did a thing where basically he got hit like while he was playing the character, and he dropped all the blue balls, and he was going around picking them up again. It gave him a link that was beyond what was seemingly possible, and because they were competing so much, like Chris couldn't work out how he'd done it, and he was just like, I just don't understand, how could this be possible? And like that was just like a little thing that he held over him for the longest time. I think he did find out in the end how he did it, but like yeah, he was really winding him up with that one.
The thing is that Divs and Lartens are convinced I told him. And I'd just like to put on record. I did not tell him.
If there was any justice, Nights into Dreams would be spoken about like Pac-Man, Donkey Kong as one of the great scorers. Because it is. But it doesn't have that cultural footprint that those games do. But it is one of the absolute very best score attack games ever made. And it has a beautiful vibe and story around it. Looks great, plays great, sounds amazing. It's got everything, but it's just looked at and people just like, I don't get it.
It's just trying to make it like show up against all the tide of the anti-Saturn stuff. It's like you were saying in your vid, James, about like, shouting into the void. It's hard to convince someone that on this machine there is that classic a game, and obviously everyone that's played it knows it, but if you're not inside of that, they just don't listen. So but one day, keep plugging away, boys. You'll convert them.
I think the storm has been shouted, and I think the storm peeled back a bit from James's video, so it's made a dent. So I think we're getting there. Bedgel, let's have your song and we'll play that in the credits.
Well, I'll have to. You have to see if you can do an edit. Because I was thinking it's got to be from Sega Rally, right? So it's probably my favorite all-time game, but certainly music sound. Yeah, you keep talking, you.
It's like the gif of was it Idris Elba? You keep talking.
I mean, it's like, I rave about up until I do the same Rally. Again, it's such a great game to come back to. But which track, I don't know. Because the thing is, if you just play a clip, like a shorter bit, I'd be going desert and basically saying, because it's more immediate. It's like straight in there. Favorite track though, Getting Muddy, Mountain. And it's the bit for me is when you're playing it a bit more long form, like a 3-lap version. And you see when you know you've nailed it, because you get to the town downhill through the town exactly as that little bridge guitar fill comes in, and it's like it's so perfect. And it's like the music itself is fantastic, but it's a bit more of a slow burn. But it's so brilliantly made, and you get into town, you hit that, and it's so satisfying and so beautiful. So that's my favorite.
We will play that.
I know exactly. I know that exact wee bit you mean if you do it in a 3-lapper and you go through it says
oh, it's amazing. So good.
It's absolutely amazing. It's like again, like whenever you were talking about nights and like, jumping off the cloud and the music hitting, like you're describing exactly. I'm hearing that, I'm seeing that tight road through the town. It's so good, man. Oh, brilliant.
Superb. Yeah, we'll play that at the end, but oh god, that's a cracking one to see us out. Brilliant. Gents, I feel like I might know the answer, but let's go to you first, Dibs. Favorite Sega console?
Oh, favorite Sega console? Well, there's only one. It's got to be the Sega Saturn. I mean, it was like the hype building up to it, like the expectation set from Daytona in the arcade, even though it wasn't quite up to that standard, but and those games that came out, the big three, oh man, it was the best time for me. And it's like, Sega might have had enough of it, but like I hadn't. I got my Saturn switched and was getting those Japanese imports, and like here we are, like what is it, nearly 30 years later, I guess. It's like it's the Saturn all the way.
Is that the same for you, Ben?
Yeah, it's hands down the Saturn. And do you know what? You'd asked me any time since '95, and I'd have been saying Saturn. But in the last year, since Fenrir, since unlocking the Japanese catalog, it's like I've got a brand new console. It's like I've got I've got Saturn all over again. And so I'm more in love with it now than I have been for 20 odd years. It's a cracking console. It's got so many like memories unlock moments, so many hours of play, and it's genuinely I say this about retro gaming. I don't really do it for nostalgia. I just play what I love now, and I will put the Saturn on above everything else just because the games are better than the other stuff that's in my library. Just absolutely adore that machine. So yeah, hands down the Saturn.
Really agree, and it's why obviously James, your video is so important and has resonated so well, is because and I think we've all looked at it. We look at the discourse that goes on throughout the community through social media on YouTube, and it sounds like for you guys as well, it certainly does for me and James, it just jars to our memory that we it's all this thing that developers complained about because it was hard to make, and Sega had it as a failure and it torpedoed Sega, but we didn't really care about any of that because the games,
that's it, take it for what it is. And oh man,
yeah, and
it's exactly the same. You guys have got like that whole friendship built on the memories of like you were the same as I spoke about me and Sam and at the end of that video, and it's like you guys would have been the same. Like Dan, you and your mates as well. You have that thing where sales numbers. I think the worst thing that gamers ever got was access to sales numbers, because it made something that you shouldn't be caring about that. But like all of us, we had a mate or a group of friends who we played this system with. We bought the magazine, we played the demo disc, we talked about the articles, we held the screenshots up to our faces to try and spot details on them. about games that were coming soon, sometimes games that never came at all. But
Yeah.
it's like the whole failure narrative. Like, we didn't care about how many Saturns had been sold. As I said in the video, we didn't give a shit about it. Like, all we wanted to do was play games with our pals, and that's what we did. And, you know, it's like you said as well, Dibs, like you went to the arcade, you seen these games, and all of a sudden, like, these were cutting edge arcade games, or you were coming home and you were playing them. Okay, Daytona might have been 20 frames per second, but on that controller, it felt the car had the weight, the power sliding was there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
you're playing
everything.
you're playing VF2, you've got high resolution 60 FPS texture mapped, you know, characters, the ring, the backgrounds on here, they were 2D, but they still looked the same as it. They had the same kind of artwork to mirror the arcade. Sega Rally, somehow bringing that handling over to a D-pad. Like, it just, the whole narrative about failure, it can't be a failure whenever we're still sitting here in our 40s. And yeah, people might go, you're just a bunch of nostalgic old bastards that can't let go of the past. And that might be true. It might be a midlife crisis. We just don't know. But it's like, that can't be failure. Like, for something to hit a nerve and to live on and to stay both here and here for that long, that's not failure, man. That's success.
That's success. That's 100%. Because, you know, I don't feel like it's nostalgia. I don't play it because like I can't let go of the games. I'm not done with them. They're just still good.
They're still
good, worth playing. And I'd say one thing actually, because obviously we've got, you know, in our like community that we're all part of, like there's plenty of PlayStation fans that are big fans of it too, and we had PlayStations as well and played the classic games, and I did love them. It's not like trying to downplay PlayStation, and I appreciate, you know, like take Sasha and who does like Splash Wave Racing and stuff, and think massive PlayStation fan, massive Ridge Racer fan, and you know, obviously I've let slip a bit of my feelings about Ridge Racer, but I just love that passion. You know, there's nothing wrong with that, and I love loads of games on the PlayStation, and I genuinely don't think, even at the time, I was like trying to hoodwink myself into preferring Sega, because as my stepdad saying to me, it's just because it's black and it looks cool. And it's like, no. It's because the games are amazing. And it's the same now. It's like, I love the PlayStation, love loads of games in it, but the Saturn just genuinely has software, just has games and experiences that are just so unique and so set apart for everything else. It does it on merit. It doesn't do it through nostalgia. Doesn't do it through us trying to kid ourselves. It does it on merit. It's that good.
Yeah. You make a great point, because we've all played PlayStations. We've all owned PlayStations. I imagine, you know, we played all the big games back in the day. I mean, we were talking earlier about Hideo Kojima and how much we loved Metal Gear Solid. You know, so it's not like we played Sega Saturn because we were starved of PlayStation or something like that. This is genuinely.
Exactly.
It's just genuinely something about it, and it's great to have you guys on there, because you're kind of like the mirror of me and James in that sense as well.
Same.
Yeah. But yeah, it's there's just something very, very special about it, and I think it is part of the frustration, part of, you know, I did my Saturn success story a while ago, and then James has knocked out a part of his video, and it's just you just want to scream from the rafters just how good it is.
And actually, one thing I really picked up on your vid, James, like, it was Sega at their most creative. You were so right with that. That's like, you know, it's like they kind of having to be creative, partly through, you know, some technical limitations and doing things that because they wanted to, you know, they were trying to work around it sometimes, but mainly just they were games they wanted to make. Saturn didn't get in their way. Saturn was just a toolkit that they used to create these amazing things. They were so creative, and I've had a great time like reading back past histories of Sega at its craziest, with the young devs just rocking up, the Virtua Cop team, Panzer Dragoon fella, like the Sega Rally team to some extent. Just like Sega was so adventurous, they were at their most creative. It did spill into Dreamcast, but it maybe became a bit more, I don't know, a bit more solid, a bit more sensible,
bit more controlled, I think, because it's like we need to have a Sonic game, we need to have an Echo the Dolphin game. We need to rely on a franchise. It's because Panzer Dragoon, which you just said, that was Sega just going, right, who's got some ideas? Who's got some ideas? It's like, that's it. It's like you. How about a game where you fly on a dragon, shoot things? Brilliant. Give this man a team. What old are you? 23. It's 6 developers.
Crack on.
Give us something for launch day. But it's like Sega on the Sega Saturn, completely misguided commercially. You know, we did a recording with Saturn Dave and Sega Lord X recently, just talking about Sega transitioning between generations. And even though, like, for Nintendo, you always had a Mario, you always had a Zelda, you always had Metroid. For Sega, it's like it changed every single time, you know, and it was just, you know, financially and commercially, it's a nightmare. And Mel did a Dreamcast video where he was saying if you wanted it to be a success, you'd have to kill Shenmue, because Shenmue, as much as everyone loves it, that's a game that put a massive hole in the company. And the same with the Sega Saturn. If you'd have said, right, we need this thing to be a success, you'd grab Yuji Naka, put a gun to his head and tie him to the chair and say, look, whatever this Air Knights thing you're putting, it ain't gonna fly. Make a Sonic game. But who would change Nights into Dreams for a 3D Sonic game? I wouldn't.
No.
And that's the thing. Sega just let them say, right, you want to make a game about a toy that runs around levels? Fine, make it then. You want a flying dragon? What, 23 years old? That's your idea? Have a team. It's like mental ideas. Dragon Force came from them, like seeing the bones of a team, Wolf Team's one of Wolf Team's abandoned projects, and going, oh, we're off that. Here's a bunch of our developers. We'll do that. They just, it was throwing caution to the wind. And in hindsight, they couldn't afford to do that. But in reality, it gave us some of the most unique and memorable experiences that we've ever had on any platform.
Yeah.
It was a wild ride. That's what I always say. It was a way to go.
Oh yeah, you're a massive fan. It's to the point you're making me think there. It's almost like that commercial angle was what created that sort of chucking money at it, losing money. It's almost without that commercial failure that everyone harps on about, we maybe just wouldn't have got what we had. If they'd have been controlled through that whole period, if they'd have been disciplined, if they'd have been Nintendo with their software, we just wouldn't have what we have. It's this going to sound a bit adventurous, but it's like it's a success culturally because it's a failure commercially. Do you know what I mean? It's like they took the risks and they punted stuff that didn't necessarily definitely make money, and we're reaping the benefits like 30 years later. So
they were just so cavalier about everything, you know. The Saturn, the 32X, the surprise launch, you know. So it's like when James, when we were talking to Nick, and he did the old, you know, let's make everything with Sega American Twin. Make a million of them. that was just Sega. And yeah, I mean, if they were more like Nintendo, or PlayStation weren't really making games at that point, were they? Polyphony, they're making that Toons game, and didn't really make anything until Gran Turismo was the first time that you actually saw a decent first party Sony game, which is in 97.
But there's a great example. We're talking to us now about Panzer Dragoon the other day, and we kind of, there's a great interview from your man, what's his name, Yukio Futatsugi. They got that young kid who's like basically rocked up and made the game, and he kind of says like, they gave me the green light, but there was no Saturn. It's not just there wasn't the dev kit yet or the Sega graphics library. There was no actual machine for me to work on. So for about 3 or 4 months after I got the green light, I just sat there and worked on the game. You know, I did the storyboards and the artwork, and he went and roped in Mobius and that fellow who did the music, who's some random Japanese synth artist. But the point being, in that craziness of just Sega greenlighting a project before they even had a machine to build it on, he actually honed it and made it what it was. That world that you see, and that thing that's so magical about it, maybe that just wouldn't have been as good if he hadn't been twiddling his thumbs for 4 or 5 months with nothing to do. You think, some of the genius was just born out of craziness, and that's just the way it was. And it lost him a bunch of money, but God, thank God they did it.
I mean, they made a rally game that, you know, was completely out there, completely different to anything else they made, and then sent all the whole development team again over to Africa on a plane to
on a piss up. Go and study rally cars. This Mizuguchi sitting on the sake like that. Fucking desert.
I mean, what sums up Sega more than the fact that they let Mizuguchi go off on his own and create a VR headset out of Game Gear screens? I mean,
With the lawnmower man.
I mean, any other company, if someone rocks up says with 2 Game Gear sellotapes together, you're sacking them on the spot. So listen, you're not giving them the license to go and make a top brand game.
Dan, send me a couple of Game Gears. I'll go into the office like that and see how far I get.
Yeah.
Oh mate.
But then you look at gaming now, and it's sterile. You know, the PS4, PS5 Pro. I mean,
oh man,
what a joke! Yeah,
we won't get into that, but it's just endemic of what.
Is it ironic that a fan base who championed $2.99 are now having to champion $6.99 plus 80 quid for a disk drive
and 30 quid for a stand?
30 quid
oh,
for a
that's
stand,
nuts.
I'm looking at my PS5 behind the telly, which I cannot stand up on its side because my box did not have a stand in it. And I'm thinking, and then just over there, Wii U with like so many stands, I've had to keep in a special box. I'm like, come on, Sony, take it a piss. It's like your first CD drive, your first DVD drive, your first Blu-ray drive, no drive.
Remember when you slated Xbox 360 owners for having to buy an external drive to play HD movies? Who's laughing now, fuckers?
I hope it's failed spectacularly.
Yeah.
The like to dislike ratio on the video is not good.
Yeah, it's quite a contrast, isn't it?
Oh, it's brutal.
The worrying thing is, go on.
No, I was going to say, I mean, you get, obviously everyone's making the point, which is probably true. They're playing to a certain fan base, the people that are completely inelastic demand, where they'll buy it, whatever, you could charge £1 million for it and they would just want it that much and they buy it. Fine, sure, that is true. But they are doing harm to it, right? There's no way you're looking at that like to dislike ratio and they're not doing themselves some harm with this. It's just nuts. So,
I didn't want to dwell on this too much, but I've got to say there was a brilliant. You know, there's those Hitler reacts videos that come out. And there's one for this. Have you seen it?
I've seen it. I saw it today.
And he rants. Obviously, it's a typical one of those videos where he rants and goes to the women outside and is going, and she's going this way. It's okay. You've got a Series S, and he's going on, and he's at the end. He's like, it's a joke. The whole industry's cooked. I'm going to buy one anyway.
Yeah, pre-order me one. I think he said.
Yes, I thought that was genius.
That was good. That was very good.
You know what we missed in the mid-90s was all these memes to get us through. If we'd have needed to pat each other back and console ourselves, I know there's no new software for the Saturn dibs, but let's watch some memes. Could have got us through. Yeah.
Memes machine Sega.
Hey,
that's good.
That is good.
Yeah.
Right, gone off piste again, gentlemen.
In the most glorious way.
We'll bring it back in for the home straight, but probably I know it's getting probably a little bit late, but just rattle off favorite game, favorite Sega game that is. So we'll come to you first, Dibs.
Do you mean like a game on a Sega console or Sega developed?
It can be, either, as long as it's the old Sega disclaimer on the Mega Drive, produced by or under license from
right.
So
well, I've got to go.
Sega console made by them.
It's got to be Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition then. So, I mean, that's the game that I've put the most time into, that I've had the most hype over. It's just, every time I fire up the Mega Drive, it's that game that gets to play first, and that it lives in my Mega Drive basically. And it's got to be Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition.
Brilliant choice, mate. I mean, Street Fighter 2 Turbo is my favorite game on the Super Nintendo. It's only kept off the kind of the top 2 spots in the Mega Drive for Sonic 2 and Streets of Rage 2, but they are for me the holy trinity of 16-bit games. And it's hard to articulate to people how big a deal Street Fighter 2 was back in the day. I try and say to my son, it's like imagine Minecraft and Fortnite but bigger, and you don't have adverts for it constantly or social media telling you how it's good. It's just everyone just knows.
They just know.
yeah, it's one of my favorite games of all time. It's still one of the best fighting games. It's quite funny when I played Alpha 2 for the first time. I actually played it on PlayStation, and at the time, my friend had rented it from the video shop. You know, we rented the game. And it's just kind of like, oh, we'll play a Street Fighter game. You know, we used to love Street Fighter before we were playing. At the time, we were playing Tekken and Virtua Fighter. We played it, and I fell in love with it. And I was just like, why have I forgotten about these 2D games? Because they're so awesome. And even though I did buy my own copy of Alpha 2 not long after, until I got my own copy of Alpha 2, dug out, reconnected the Mega Drive, and was playing Special Champion Edition for ages again. Just saying,
Right.
this game is still so good. Like,
It
this is
really is.
96, 97, like 3 years on. It was
Yeah.
just, even at that point, it was timeless.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
absolutely timeless.
What about you then, Ben? What's your number one Sega game?
Well, I mean, it dances about, but I think it's Sega Rally. You know, there's a strong top three that are just interchangeable a lot of the time. Streets of Rage 2, Crazy Taxi, and Sega Rally. But you know, I know like a Sega published, you know, an ancient game of Streets of Rage 2, but it's Sega in it, really. And those three definitely sit at the top table, but I think it's Rally just because of, if you look at hours played, enjoyment had, like times raved about, it's Rally. And I just think like there's something like uniquely special for each of those points in time about those three games. You know, for me, Crazy Taxi is my favorite Dreamcast game, like Streets of Rage 2 my favorite Mega Drive game, and I'd rave about those two. But I think Sega Rally is it's just so brilliantly crafted, and like I was saying before, this new appreciation of that craft after the Panda video, it is genuinely a work of art. And yeah, everything about it's perfect. It's like favorite game ever, favorite Sega game ever. Yeah, brilliant.
No complaints here for me on that one.
That's a good choice.
Safe ground talking to the Sega guys and saying you like Sega Rally.
That's the thing. I mean, the fact that you said that Crazy Taxi is your favourite Dreamcast game, I mean, I'm right there with you in that. I think Crazy Taxi like embodies Dreamcast. Like everything about that console, the time it came out, the way the music, just everything, the whole vibe, it just captures it perfectly. But Sega Rally, I think, just after the criticism that the machine took for Daytona, no one, I think if people heard that Sega Rally was coming out, they probably would have been scoffing. You know, if they're maybe older and were a bit more aware of things, they might have been like, well, it couldn't do Daytona, so how's it going to do this? And then for it to turn around and my God, man, again, a team, which I didn't know at the time. I knew that Mizuguchi had a team and he supervised them, but it was the guys that worked on like Virtua Racing on the Mega Drive. Like he's just basically handpicked these guys who have done nothing on that scale before, and then he's took them on a piss up across the world to study rally, and they've came back. They've talked to they've talked to what's the rally driver's name? My head went to Mars there. What's the boy's name again?
Fujimoto? No.
Fujimoto. Aye. They got him in. He gave them all the kind of inside knowledge and physics and tested it and got the feel for it. And then they've just put out this absolute insane game, which to hear, Mizuguchi say on the footage that Panda found in his video, that something Dan and I have said on here before, it's not a port. It's its own game. It's its own version.
Yeah.
And he says that it's not a port. It's built specifically for that hardware, and it just works so well. And it's like there's creators out there that make videos and they review it and they say it's the most overrated arcade racer ever made, and you can complete it in 4 minutes, and it has no longevity, and it only has 3 tracks, and it only has 2 cars. And I'm like, yeah, but that's your opinion, and you're entitled to it, but you're too young. You're not understanding what fundamentally makes the game great. Yeah, it is only over in 4 minutes. Well, if you're really good, it's over in 3 minutes and 15 seconds. But it's like, you need to understand that bringing these games home and at that period of time, like that's what people wanted. They didn't want 100-hour epics, they didn't want cinematic gameplay, they didn't want side quests or open world. They wanted to have these behemoth machines shrunk down and you were able to play them. And people go like, oh, where's the value in paying 40, 50 quid for Sega Rally back in the day? If you put a pound coin, how many times have you hit restart on Sega Rally? That's a pound coin, right?
Yeah.
I've got more than £50 coins worth out of Sega Rally in the last 20 odd years. So no, it's
100,
phenomenal.
100%.
No,
I would say I'd probably say if I was better at Crazy Taxi, I might get it. Because the thing is, for the first couple of goes on Crazy Taxi, I will love it as much as any game, as much as Rally, as much as anything. But I reckon I'm just not quite good enough at it, and so I'm going to plug away. Dibs is your man. He's an absolute king.
No, I learned from James about like that you need to play that track as a loop. It's like I never thought of that. It's like, oh yeah, it's kind of
community at work. Yeah,
it's that guy with the flowers though, because you need to get to the fire station, and you look across, and the guy with the flowers is standing there. But sometimes he's a dick, and he asks to go, back to the mall. See, when he does that, I curse him so bad, man, because like you can get some runs where you've fought like absolute hell to like get the wee fat ginger guy with the specs and the suit. He basically you need him, you pick him up at the bus terminal, and you need him to go to the fire station. If he goes there, then you're looking for Mr. Suit with the flowers. He's your man.
He's the one.
He needs to go to the university to get you back to the start. If he doesn't, you're screwed.
You've got to write player guides, man, because I just need the line in there. By the way, sometimes he's a dick.
I know, but Mr. Thunderwing said he was stealing a line from me that I used on Twitter the other day there to describe the Lion King. I called it an absolute bastard of a game, and he went, "I'm stealing that." It's like,
it's a good description.
Accurate.
If there's one thing about him, he's got some brilliant swearing. I think I even messaged him today saying he's got a turn of phrase on it that's fantastic. So I could see he'd appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. So good. Great choices.
Superb choices.
Fantastic, gents. Where did those hours go? That absolutely flew by. I've had an absolute blast.
That's been brilliant.
Yeah, but didn't have
it's
to
just
get
so
up.
much fun talking games, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
But if I didn't have to get up for work, and if Zoom didn't do its hour-long unpacking of the video, I would carry on going for another 2. But we will have to do this again. But thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, we will. Thank you so much for coming on. Just let our audience, our listeners, and our viewers know where they can find you.
Floor is yours, gents.
So,
go visual.
Well, the YouTube is youtube.com/gaming4ages with little underscores in between the words. You may find a 10-year-old boy who's also got a Gaming for Ages. So if you find him, that's not us. No, us at Gaming for Ages. We're on Twitter as well. So obviously Dibs on there is Dibs Ahoy, and I'm on there as Grigor Riggs. And then you can find the links to the channel from there as well.
We've got an Instagram as well, actually, haven't we?
Oh yeah, which you've been cleverly, brilliantly managing to build up. You'll also find us littering these guys' tweets and YouTube comments as well. So we'll be around.
I'll check you out on Instagram when I unlock my account. I've been banned.
Oh no!
What have you done?
What have you done?
Right, so yeah, I got my youngest daughter because she wanted one. She wanted a Oculus Quest 2, but obviously you can't have one unless you're 13 years old. So added my Facebook account on there. Not thought about anything of it. Someone sent me a few Instagram links today, like, "Oh, check this out, really funny." Like, I'm like, I can't access it. And then I thought, shit myself. Like before we recorded, before I sent the link out, I was scrambling around because I thought someone had hacked my Facebook, so I couldn't log in, saying this user's not. I typed in my email addresses, typed in my username, and obviously my username, one of them is swooper_D.
Yeah.
Type that in, and this guy with a hoodie popped up. All I can see was his eyes and the hoodie. It's like Kenny out of this thing, but I thought it was somebody that had stolen my account or was hacked me, or was just like, I was like, oh my god. I said to Tash, I've been hacked. I was like, can you find me on Instagram? She's like, no, you're not on there. I was like, shit, I've been hacked. I've got stuff on there. And anyway, so I've gone on. It said this user account doesn't exist. Do you want to create one? I've created one. I tried to create one. It said this user account does exist. I was like, what? It's like, you've been banned. So it's like, look through the emails, thought someone's hacked me and put something inappropriate on. Eventually found the email because it comes from Meta, not Instagram. And it said, you've had this account, but we've got evidence that says that you're under 12, that you're under 10 years old. And I was like, oh, for goodness sake. And then it's like, yeah, you prove that you're you by paying something. And I was trying to pay it just before we came on, and it wasn't working. But I was just like, bastards, lace my hand with silver. So I will check you guys out when I manage to get back onto Instagram.
Yeah, we've got evidence. We've got evidence you're a kid. What is it? You seem to be very, very interested in computer games.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. My youngest has been putting, probably said that I'm 10 years old or something like that. It's like big sirens going on in Mark Zuckerberg's office.
Oh, geez, yeah.
But anyway, viewers, listeners, make sure you check out Gaming for Ages and the Greek Orig blog as well. And follow both Dibs
Links
and Vigil
in the description.
Absolutely. But that will do us for now. So, ladies and gentlemen, hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as we have. We've absolutely had a blast here. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a like and a subscribe, because that really helps the channel. Hit that bell for notifications to get all future Sega Guys content. If you want to be extra mega, think about becoming a member, which you can do from as little as 99p, with a bunch of awesome perks such as exclusive content, previews to future shows, and of course you get your name shouted out in the credits, just like these special people that James is going to read out right now.
Certainly, our premium members: Sega Saturn Lad, G-Man, Stiff Peaks, I Am Mikowski, Craig Williamson, Resident SD, P-Wall, Tom Fum, Peter007, Andy Mackey, Nick Tullock, and of course our brothers at Sega Saturn, Shiro. Thank you to all our premium members and all members and subscribers for your continued support. Now past over 7,000 subscribers in total. Videos are doing great, so thank you very much, everybody, for your continued support going forward. Thank you very much.
Absolutely massive thanks to everyone for the recent bump in subs and views. I really appreciate it. Extremely, truly thankful and humbled by your continued support, and me and James will continue to keep it Sega, and we will see you on the Sega side.
Sega!